Hello, royal watchers. Pull up a velvet cushion, warm that pot of Earl Grey, and let's wander through Windsor Castle together, because one Midsummer Wednesday has gifted us a story that fuses pomp, pathos and palace intrigue in equal measure. On the surface it was a picture-perfect investiture, cancer-battling King Charles III handing out medals with a smile that could light the long walk. Beneath the gilt, though, rumblings of an unconfirmed peace summit with Team Sussex, and the glaring no-show of Prince William, kept every courtier and commentator on tenterhooks. So, pop on your imaginary coronet, we're going deeper than the moat. Morning Majesty. Sunrise at Windsor is its own brand of theatre. Tangy honeysuckle drifts through ancient arrow slits, jackdaws chatter on the battlements like gossipy footmen, and, when the guard changes, you can almost feel 9 centuries of monarchs thumping their approval beneath the cobbles. At 7 a.m. precisely, household staff flung open the casement windows of St. George's Hall, releasing a hush that felt equal parts sacred and suspenseful. By mid-morning, the castle had become a hive of ritual. Coachmen in crimson livery guided rolling carriages under the Norman Gate, their wheels whispering secrets into the gravel. Inside, yeoman warders checked medal ribbons against calligraphed seating plans, while the master of the household rehearsed the grand procession like a West End director. Enter on the beat, bow from the waist, glide off stage left. Then, suddenly, silence snapped over the hall. Twin doors creaked open and King Charles appeared. Anyone expecting a frail figure was startled. Yes, chemo has thinned his cheeks, but his posture spoke volumes. Shoulders squared, gaze steady, right hand gripping that silver-topped walking stick like Excalibur. One footman confided later, you could see the determination sizzling off him, like he'd made a pact with himself, illness may visit, but duty lives here. The weight of a ribbon. Investitures might look like dainty pageants, yet each medal contains a universe of human grit. First to step forward was a grey-haired oncologist who'd pioneered a breast cancer vaccine. She wept softly when the king thanked her for returning futures to families. Next came an engineer from Newcastle whose flood defense system had saved entire villages. He gave Charles a rough handshake that left flecks of soil on those immaculate gloves. And then came the chart toppers. Leona Lewis floated down the carpet in teal silk so vivid it seemed to hum against the medieval tapestry backdrop. The OBE citation read, "Services to music and charity," but that scarcely captures her resume: million-selling albums, wildlife campaigns, youth choir endowments, and a mentorship scheme for black women in production. Charles whispered something, lip readers swear it was, "Your high notes bring people hope," and Leona's eyes misted faster than you can say bleeding love. Moments later, Mylene Klass took center stage. Her story already feels legend: classical pianist at 12, pop idol at 23, TV darling at 30, and after 4 miscarriages, fierce architect of the UK's new pregnancy loss certificate at 45. The king pinned her MBE just below her clavicle. She steadied trembling hands, and cameras immortalized a single tear sliding across the gold. Outside, fans burst into spontaneous applause that rolled up the round tower like thunder. The digital trumpet. Royal tradition used to travel at carriage pace, now it gallops at 5G. 30 minutes after the last handshake, at Therola family Instagram dropped a carousel of glossy photos. There was Charles in profile, regal nose catching the light, flanked by rows of recipients, whose smiles stretched wider than the castle gate. Within an hour the post hit 600,000 likes, outperforming last week's trooping snapshot, and prompting commenters to gush, "The king is unstoppable." Of course, savvy observers spotted strategy. With headlines swirling about family fractures, what better antidote than images of monarchy plus meritocracy plus Instagram sparkle? Crisis comms at its sleekest. Remind the world that this institution can still amplify unsung heroes while the tabloids chase sibling drama. Whispers in drafty corridors. And oh, what whispers they were. For a fortnight, London's press pack has buzzed with claims that royal aides are stitching together a low-key meeting between Charles and representatives of Prince Harry. Not a formal summit, think sofas, herbal tea and a leave-your-phone-at-the-door rule. The goal? Melt a few glacier from the Great Windsor freeze. But here's the snag. Every source, from palace footmen to California donates, agrees on one point: Prince William wasn't on the guest list. Whether he declined or was never invited remains murky, but the optics are unmistakable. Two ends of the rift might be sewing, the crucial middle stays stuck. One veteran commentator likened it to mending a torn flag while the flagpole wobbles. More fuel arrived when William's diary revealed a charity summit 30 miles away that very afternoon, a scheduling coincidence that felt just a tad too convenient. Conspiracy theorists skipped breakfast to tweet threads mapping every minute. If the prince left reading at 12:10, he could have reached Windsor by 12:52, plenty of time for a handshake. Cue 30,000 reposts and an avalanche of facepalm emojis. Rivals in the court of public opinion. Pollsters scrambled to frame the narrative. A YouGov flash survey found 54% of Britons sympathetic to William's caution, while 41% endorsed Harry's requests for mediation. The remaining 5% politely ticked, "Who cares? Just show us the corgis." Yet beneath the numbers, one truth pulsed. The monarchy's emotional equity now swings on whether these brothers choose olive branches or stinging nettles. Charles, for his part, seems determined that service outruns scandal. In the past 6 months the monarch has planted 42 trees, hosted 19 foreign dignitaries, launched the Coronation Food Project, and, chemo drip be damned, squeezed in 5 investitures. One aide joked the king measures recovery not in blood counts, but diary commitments, more engagements, fewer platelets. That's a trade he'll take. Windsor, bricks, mortar, metaphor. Why Windsor? Besides the postcard visuals, the castle is a living thesis on continuity. Edward III planned battle strategies here. Henry VIII courted Anne Boleyn under its turrets. Elizabeth II spent lockdown bouncing Zoom calls in the Oak Room. When Charles pins a medal beneath 15th century hammer beams, he's making a silent declaration: you can tweet rumors all you like, this building, and the idea it represents, endures. Even so, the human undercurrent is impossible to ignore. Somewhere beyond that stone facade, the king eats supper alone when Camilla's diary drags her to Highgrove. Somewhere in the private chapel he's prayed for sons who barely share a continent, let alone Christmas plans. That duality, majestic facade, vulnerable core, may be the monarchy's most relatable quality in 2025. The Campaigner's Crusade. Back to our honorees. Leona left the castle clutching a leather box like it contained the Holy Grail. She's promised to funnel renewed attention into her LGBTQ+ youth foundation and her fight against ivory trafficking. Meanwhile, Mylene's team spent the train ride home drafting letters to MPs, reminding them that if the king can learn about miscarriage codes of practice, the health secretary can too. Already a cross-party task force is penciling March as the deadline for a first reading debate. One midwife tweeted, "When St. George's Hall meets Westminster Hall, things actually move." For thousands of families haunted by silent hospital corridors, that movement feels revolutionary. The long shadow of fraternal frost. But looming like an eclipse across this sunshine narrative is the status of Prince Harry. Should he land at Heathrow tomorrow, half the nation would cheer, the other half would brace for a Netflix crew. The palace, ever risk-averse, knows that a single misstep, an off-mic remark, a crooked seating plan, could blow months of delicate detent. Add William's caution, and you have a stalemate dressed in velvet. Insiders hint that Charles's chemo regimen has sharpened his sense of time. One source muttered, "The king isn't playing the long game, he's playing the necessary game." Translation: reconciliation may unfold in bite-sized moments, a shared joke at a christening, a photographed hug.